Let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
A blue-eyed white woman talking about her good genes. That is Nazi propaganda.
Do you believe this? Dems lose their minds over genes while Crockett and Mayor Pete scramble to show their party the way forward, but it seems like they are a step backward.
Number 2.
This is the time to stand up and say no more slaughter by a weapon of mass destruction designed to kill people on the battlefield, not in our buildings here in the great city of New York.
Only Democrats can look at this tragedy and think the gun is to blame. More details emerging on the killer and his victims in Monday night's Midtown shooting as New York leadership focuses on not the shooter but the weapon. Predictable and unhelpful.
Number 1.
I think that the Chinese were surprised by the magnitude of the Japan deal. I believe that they were in more of a mood for a wide-ranging discussion.
Wow, there you go. Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent brings us inside 2 really intense days of dealing with China when it comes to trade. A big day for your dollars. The Fed decides what to do with interest rates. The trade deal deadline is a couple of days away. U.S. talks could be getting closer to India as they queue up for a monster deal. And we found out the economy's growing at 3%. That's without any impact from the big, beautiful law or any of these trade deals, but a lot of tariff money. Mark Levin joins us now. His book is already selling great on Power. Mark, great to see you.
You know, my brother, I'm embarrassed. There you are wearing a tie on radio. Hell, I've never worn a tie, period, let alone on radio. But you've been great. I appreciate it. 3%. That is a big number. Big number before the tax cuts kick in. I mean, that is huge.
Look, I'm not an economist, but they always say you raise the rates to control inflation, which was at 9%. Nobody thinks inflation's out of control. Don't say you're worried about the tariffs. They came out in April. Here we are, the end of July. No big, in fact. You would think that the Fed chair would cut rates and give the American people a break, put that dormer on their house or buy a new house.
Milton Friedman wrote a great book about how the Depression actually happened, the Great Depression. And he said it wasn't exuberance. It wasn't that. The Fed tightened the money supply when it should have loosened it up. And he provides enormous number of statistics. This is what put him out there on the radar. He was right. The Fed continues to tighten the money supply when it should loosen it up, because what it's doing right now is it's blunting growth. We could have enormous growth going on right now. Then the tax cuts follow. It wouldn't be inflation. This would be real growth, not government-created paper. This would be real economic growth and prosperity. But he's got his foot on the brake.
He does. And lastly, before we get to your book, just on China over the last 2 days, it's interesting. Very little posturing, politicking, tempers. We hear Chinese sent 75 people. We have 15, and we deal pretty intensely for 2 days. How do you feel about the president going to deal mode instead of confrontation mode?
Well, he's got confrontation mode hanging right here, as Putin found out, as the Iranians found out, as the others find out. I think they know what most Americans don't know. Xi right now is literally fending off challengers to his power. He's trying to kill them and remove them, generals and so forth and so on. Their economy is hurting. The average person there is not doing that well. They're trying to restrain the outflow of cash from China right now. So they've got a lot of problems going on. And so I think they're ready to be dealt with. And they don't want, and they can't use massive tariffs put on top of all this right now. Xi could lose his power. So I think we're in a perfect position.
Yeah, I just don't think, and if you hear about it, you wouldn't think this, but they have no social safety net. So therefore, they're not spending a lot of money because they're responsible for their own, long-term care, so to speak. And so they're not spending any money, and a lot of them are losing their jobs. So you can't get them to spend on themselves. So they have to export. And if we're not buying their stuff and Europe's not buying their stuff at the rate, they're really in trouble. Mark, let's talk about the book. You come up with these deep, these perspectives, these ideas, and you grow them. But I love when you stake it in and you build it off the forming of our country and our Constitution. Tell me about Power.
First of all, I want to thank you for reading it. It's clear you read it. You did that interview over the weekend, and I appreciate it. Even now, you're very generous. Look, I'll be honest with you. I was lying in bed for 2.5 months because I tore my tendon 100%, and I got sick of staring at the ceiling. So I started thinking about, like a nerd, the founding of the Revolutionary War, liberty, tyranny. I said, something's not right. In all these decades, I've been talking about it. And what's not right is, when you read the scholars, when you read even the ancients like Aristotle, you read, what are they always talking about? They don't really say it. They're talking about power, who gets to make decisions. And then you look at our country. Why is our country so great? Why is it different, even greater than Western European societies? And the reason is the basis for our founding. And what's the basis for our founding? Now, whether people like it or not, whether they believe in faith or not, whether they're Jewish or Christian or not, it doesn't matter. This is how the nation was founded, on Judeo-Christian values fused with the Enlightenment. Now, what does that mean? They tell us what it meant. The sovereign is God. Read the Declaration of Independence. 4 times God is mentioned in different ways. They say that's the sovereign. Now, we on earth, his children, are the sovereign when it comes to governing ourselves. We are the sovereign. No government, no masterminds, no experts, no small cabal, period. And you need to have a civil society before you have a government. What's a civil society? Civil society is a collection of free individuals who come together to create some kind of order and justice and law to protect their liberty and their property and so forth. From there, you get government. That's basically what the Declaration says. That is completely different than the ideology of Marxism or fascism or even political Islamism. What do they say? They say there's one way, there's only one way. Marx attacked the idea of individualism and free will. He said it was selfish, that everybody had to come together under one umbrella, that people needed to make decisions about what's in the best interest of all the people. And of course, what happens? We see what happens. You basically get these politburos. You get the parties more powerful than the country, and the people don't mean anything. You have to re-engineer the people. You have to re-engineer human nature. You have to re-engineer society. This is a police state. It creates power. And that's why in the book, I break it down into negative power and positive power and so forth and so on.
And if you are somebody that wants power, wants to control your country, the idea of America is a threat, because we are somebody that participates in the process. You're in power as long as we want to keep you there. That is something that absolute monarchs want nothing to do with. Does that explain in your mind why we seem to be, throughout generations, always see on some level be under attack?
We are constantly under attack. The trajectory is not good. I mean, you have respites here when we have with Reagan and Trump and so forth. The problem is, like in our own country, once the Democrats take over, they make permanent changes to our constitutional system through the courts, through their massive bureaucracy. These activist judges in this massive bureaucracy are the opposite of consensual government, the opposite of representative government. They don't give a damn what the people think. They tell the people what to drive, what to eat, what to wear, where to go, when to go. You saw in the pandemic, it was the pinnacle of control in these blue states and these blue cities and so forth, what they will do, what they can do. So the battle that's in this country is the same battle as I perceive it in the Revolutionary War, which is power versus power. Which type of power will overcome which type of power? What I call positive power and then negative power.
Understood. Now, back to Hamilton and Jefferson. Why was it important for you to outline their different philosophies?
You know, it's interesting you bring this up. This guy, Jeff Rosen at the National Constitution Center, wants to sit down with me and discuss this because he has studied Hamilton. And he felt what I wrote about Hamilton, I'm not saying, was quite brilliant and very interesting. And what I did is I really dug into the Constitutional Convention. I really dug into a debate over the National Bank. Now, keep in mind, Hamilton, Madison, John Jay, but mostly Hamilton and Madison wrote the Federalist Papers. So they were all for the Constitution. But it's interesting. If you look at Madison's notes of the Constitutional Convention, Hamilton made 2 very strange proposals. Number one, that this new Senate they were debating should be made up of permanent politicians, which completely rejected. Number 2, he even entertained the idea of a permanent president, which was completely repudiated by the other delegates. And, Madison's sitting there scratching his head, saying, what the hell is going on with Hamilton? Now, Jefferson wasn't there, as you know, he was in Paris doing other things. But all that said, so that it comes to a head over the debate over the national bank. Washington turns to Jefferson, his Secretary of State. He turns to Madison, one of the greats, and he turns to Hamilton, his Secretary of the Treasury, and he says, what should I do about this? What does the Constitution allow? And this exposes Hamilton. Hamilton versus Jefferson and Madison. And what Hamilton says is, even though the power to create a bank isn't explicitly in the Constitution, it is implied in the Constitution. And this is where Madison and Jefferson say, you've just destroyed the text of the Constitution. What do you mean it's implied? Follow the text of the Constitution. The states determine banks, financial systems, and so forth. There's no need for a national bank. And by the way, when Jefferson does come in, he gets rid of the national bank. And so this battle goes on. So I guess the point is to keep it short and sweet. Yeah. At our earliest times, the debate over an activist view of the Constitution and a stricter view of the Constitution exploded onto the scene.
And we have the state constitutions that came together to make one constitution. So we weren't writing it from we actually hit the ground running when it came to putting it together. Two people throughout history that you think we should take a look at. FDR lauded as one of the greats. We should revisit that because he took over a country in crisis for sure, but he has a second constitution that he puts out there. And the other one is Woodrow Wilson.
Woodrow Wilson in the late 1800s was one of the earliest so-called progressive intellectuals. That is the progeny of Marx. He was spellbound by Marxism and Engels and so forth, and others, Hegel and Rousseau, but nonetheless. And so he kind of Americanizes this, which is why I call it American Marxism. And so he's an intellectual. There are others, and they build on this. They hate the Declaration of Independence. They say it's quaint, but why should we be bound by it? The revolutionaries, they wrote it. They didn't feel bound by anything. Why should we be bound by this? Why? For the reasons I said earlier. They wanted the centralization of power. We believe in power checking power. That's what the Enlightenment was about, separation of powers. Scalia said the Constitution is about separation of powers. That's the difference. Montesquieu said the same thing. Once one branch takes over another branch, we have tyranny. So what did FDR do? FDR came up with a second Bill of Rights. What was it based on? It was based on Stalin's 1936 Constitution. And I point that out in the book, which is a great Constitution, but it's a complete lie, which is another thing that the Marxists and the Democrats do. Lie, thought control, language control, like wokeism and so forth, as I explained in the book. Woodrow Wilson is a very dangerous and evil man. He was a eugenicist, he was a racist, but he was also a Marxist. They called themselves progressives, almost like Hamas. They're very good at the PR game. Hey, right. We're progressive, which of course they're regressive. It's like Hamas. Oh, look how the Israelis are starving our people while they're killing their own people. That is Hamas. Well, the progressives, that is the American Marxists, that's what they are the same. In that respect, they're very good at propaganda and using words, but they believe in thought control. Look what happened again during the pandemic. On social media and so forth, they were trying to control discussion, control knowledge, control debate. And they do this all the time. Understood.
Mark Levin, his book is on power. It's one of the top-selling books in the country right now. It is great, and it's really gets you thinking. Mark, congratulations on it. Continued success, and I look forward to seeing your show over the weekend.
And you too, brother. You're doing great. Your Sunday show is fantastic. And I would just tell people to go to Amazon.com. Any major bookstore, they're all out there right now. And I want to thank you again. God bless you.
No problem. See you again. Mark Levin.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
So that is, I guess, the controversy of the day that makes absolutely no sense when it comes to Sydney Sweeney. She's a very attractive woman on Lotus, which is on, is it on Netflix? I'm not sure.
White Lotus, not on Netflix. I forget where, but
one of the streaming services. So Sydney Sweeney does a of American Eagle jeans commercial where she says she has good genes. Get it? Genes as opposed to Jenes. Why am I pointing that out? Because it created outrage because she happens to be this horrible thing called white and attractive. And that means she has good genes. Get it? Good genes. And therefore, people think this is a call to Nazism, back to white supremacy. I'm not kidding. Listen to what some of these TikTok users are saying. Cut 26.
Hey, American Eagle. Now do black and brown women. Because black and brown women also have great genes that they inherit from their parents. Did you know that?
Talking about blue jeans and white people, boycott American Eagle. Boycott the out of them.
A blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman is talking about her good genes. Like, that is Nazi propaganda.
Is that the craziest thing ever? Now, it seems like the left wing, the wild left, are taking active shots at this Sydney Sweeney and American Eagle. By the way, I think their stock is up significantly because this is a niche, not a dominating thought around the country. Most people understand. And by the way, some of this money goes to charity that she's doing this for. Here's what this professor at Keene University, Robin Landa, on ABC. Cut 27.
The pun, good genes, activates troubling historical associations for this country. The American eugenics movement in its prime between like 1900 and 1940 weaponized the idea of good genes just to justify white supremacists.
You believe these idiots? I mean, it's just so stupid. We're past it. I mean, if it was 5 years ago, this would fill into the George Floyd things and America's a horrible, horrible racist place. And let's take a knee at an NFL game or a women's national soccer team game because of it. But hopefully people stand up, speak out, and she does not back down. Evidently, somebody in her family wore a Trump hat, and that caused an outrage in the past. We know where she might be leaning. I don't think it really hurts you anymore to say that you voted for Trump. But we'll see. I don't know where she is. I never talked about her. I don't think about her. I know she looks good in a Gene commercial. That's about it. But they used to have a lot of big celebrities, male and female. Ron Duguay with the New York Rangers used to do a Gene's commercial. Sassoon, I think. Brooke Shields was famous for a Gene's commercial. Remember this, cut 25.
The secret of life lies hidden in the genetic code. Genes are fundamental in determining the characteristics of an individual and passing on these characteristics to succeeding generations. Which brings us to Calvin's and the survival of the fittest.
Okay. There was no outrage back then. In fact, Q just became a bigger store. Let's bring in Karl Rove. Karl, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Breaking news was the president found out his GDP's at 3%. That's got to be a good feeling, right?
Yeah, it is. Now that's annualized. So we had not as good a number in the first quarter, better number here in the second quarter. Let's hope it continues. I think one of the things that will help it continue was the parts of the big, beautiful bill that made permanent the provisions that encourage companies to invest in capital investments in plants and equipment, because what that means is when they do that, somebody has to build those buildings and make that equipment, and it makes the employees of that company more productive and hence able to strengthen the economy.
So here is the Treasury Secretary talking about 2 days of talks with China. Cut 2.
We had a very fulsome 2 days with the Chinese delegation led by Vice Premier Ho Feng. It was our third meeting. I'm happy to say that London built on Geneva, Stockholm built on London and Geneva. I think we had great momentum going into the meeting thanks to the president's trade deals. I think that the Chinese were surprised by the magnitude of the Japan deal, by the magnitude and the terms of the European deal. So I think that they're never compliant, but I believe that they were in more of a mood for a wide-ranging discussion.
And they sent 75 people, Karl. You've been through China personally. You've analyzed it, written about it in the Wall Street Journal. Read between the lines on what Scott was saying.
I think the Treasury Secretary, first of all, is this rock star in the cabinet, and what he is doing on these trade negotiations is superb. And I think he put his finger on the right thing, which was two right things, actually. One is this is a process, not an event. He went to Geneva, had discussions. He went to London, had more discussions. He built on the success that was happening outside the negotiations, showed up in Stockholm, had more discussions. This will keep going, and better for the U.S. to show progress. I mean, he's right. Japan was a great deal, a big deal. And it built on some others, the Philippines, Vietnam. All of these are in sort of China's arena, China's area of the world. So the more we get those kind of deals done, I wouldn't rush on China. Let's go get the Philippines. That's now getting done. Vietnam was done. Let's get Korea done. And all of those will put more pressure on the Chinese to be responsible and reasonable and get a good deal.
India, too. And
India, too. Yeah, absolutely. India more important frankly, India is more important than China. India will have a bigger population and a bigger economy in all likelihood than China by the middle of the century. It already has, it's close to having, if not an actual larger population. And it, it's an important player in the world scene. Better to tie them closer to us than to, let them float out there and fall. They're part of BRICS, so they've got some instincts that are not helpful to U.S. interests, but nonetheless, getting them. We've been spending the last 20 years building a strong relationship with India, Republican and Democratic presidents alike. Let's keep that progress going.
Is the deal with India finalized?
No, it's not.
Okay. So what rate are you expecting?
We're going to see. We're going to see. But India's been a good friend, but India has charged basically more tariffs than almost any other country.
So he said, I think they're going to, just judging by some of the cadence of the other deals and knowing that him and Modi do get along, and rather than take a 25% across-the-board tariff and have to unwind it, I think they get something done in the next 2 days.
I hope so. It would be a big stroke. Again, this has implications beyond simply trade. It has implications for the geopolitical balance in the world. And the more that we tie these people to us by trade deals that both find acceptable, the stronger the U.S. will be on the world stage, and the weaker our adversaries are. And let's not kid ourselves. We have adversaries who are more dangerous and more antagonistic to us than at any time since perhaps 1938 or maybe briefly 1962 after the Bay of Pigs and the missile crisis. I mean, we've got some important work to do to strengthen America's position in the world.
So I know you saw the horrific shooting that took place at 345 Park Avenue right in New York City, and you see this gunman walk in, 27 years old, and just randomly kill people and like a coward chasing down women, including a maid on the 33rd floor. And I talked to a police chief today. He said in his 36 years on the job, the most horrific scene that he has witnessed. And it's the takeaway for Democrats is blame the gun, blame the rifle. Time to get assault weapons off. You come from a state that has no problem with guns. Your reaction to the Democratic predictable reaction?
Well, there's evil in this world, and that man was evil, and he was sick. And rather than saying, you know what, if people who are mentally ill need greater supervision and more help, that's where they ought to be focused. I had a friend in that building. We were texting with him while he was sheltering in place in a locked closet. I mean, my God. And think about it. This guy really was disturbed. I mean, he mentally ill, dependent upon the medications to keep him centered, and he thought he had a brain disease and blamed it on the NFL. And yet he never played professional football, and there was no evidence that he had a brain disease. He was just mentally ill. And for the mayor, the governor, others, mayoral candidate, I should say, and the governor to come out and say these things, it's simply not helpful. It's using it for another purpose, and we ought to stay focused on the purpose, which is how did this guy come to be able to commit this crime, and what could have been done to keep him from, who was responsible for taking care of him, looking out after him, making certain that he stayed on his meds.
So we're talking to Karl Rove, of course. Karl, Zohran Ramdani, they just did a Zenith study. everyone he matches up with, he beats. They could all drop, they all drop out and make one-on-one with Eric Adams. He wins by 20. One-on-one with Cuomo, wins by 15. One-on-one with Sliwa, wins. So this guy, Mamdani, has got a record of not only defunding the police, but also this brand. The first in there was SRG, first on the scene. They're the SWAT of the city. And he tweeted this out in 24. As mayor, I will disband the SRG, which has cost taxpayers millions in lawsuits and outlets and brutalized countless New Yorkers exercising their First Amendment rights. And he has said this in 2021, cut 20.
When we talk about defund the NYPD, the entirety of the push is defund the NYPD and refund all of these different social services and things that actually create safety.
Got 36,000 cops in the city. We need 40. And this guy still is on defund the police. He doesn't walk this stuff back.
No, and he's not the only Democrat in a big city who's talking about this. The candidate, Senator Fatah in Minneapolis, has called for replacing armed police response with, quote, crisis behavior response teams. And I mean, do these people not understand what's going on? I mean, do they understand that? Oh, well, let's send a greeter, with a couch so that the 345 Park Avenue shooter has a place to lie down for a moment, and let's get a therapist to talk to him about it, and blah blah blah. Don't they understand that's not how the world works? And they're creating a problem for the Democrats. They may be just the mayor of Minneapolis or the mayor of New York City, but I remember when Gene Kirkpatrick stood up at the 1984 Republican Convention and excoriated San Francisco Democrats, and everybody knew what that meant in America. And that's one of the reasons why Ronald Reagan won a 49-state victory, because people said the Democratic Party is too far to the left. And these two guys, particularly the mayor of New York, the great shining city, well, actually, think about it, Bass in Los Angeles, while she may have a more moderate demeanor, she's pretty far out there as well. This is going to be the face of the Democratic Party. Do you really want the Democrats who tolerate these lunatics as the governing party in America? I guess so. That person, Omar Fatah, who's leading, I guess, the Democratic race, get the primary, is going to win if you get the Democratic nomination to be the mayor of Minneapolis. You don't. Let me correct you on that. Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, is himself a left-winger. And he's been elected mayor twice after losing the DFL nomination. You run on a nonpartisan ballot there, but the parties get to endorse. The Republican endorsement doesn't mean anything because Minneapolis is a very left-wing city. But twice he's gotten elected mayor. This one is a little bit different because there's one other issue we haven't touched on in Minneapolis, and that is Fry is Jewish, and there is a heavy anti-Semitic attitude being portrayed by Democratic activists in that city, anti-Israel, anti-Jew, pro-Palestine. Palestine will be free from the river to the sea. A refusal to denounce Hamas, refusal to denounce the October invasion. I mean, there's another issue there. I wouldn't be surprised, incidentally, if Fry ultimately won the race, because this guy, Fatah, is so extreme. He's originally from, Somalia. Somalia, but when he came to the United States, he spent a lot more time in Virginia than he has he'd been in, I think, in Minneapolis and Wisconsin and Minnesota for maybe a decade. But my sense is that I would not be surprised to see Fry cobble together a coalition of reasonable Democrats, sensible independents, and what few Republicans there are in the town. I want you to hear from Omar Fatah on MSNBC, Cut 22.
Zoran's win was not only making huge waves in New York, but here in Minneapolis and across the country. I think it's important for the Democratic Party going forward to make a decision on what kind of party it wants to be, not only in our local mayor elections that we're seeing, but in the midterms and beyond.
Yeah, what does the party want to be? He's saying that Mamdani is his template, and he's exactly like him.
Yeah, I want to put it to rest right here. I want to be clear about this, and I know this is going to inflame you, and it's going to be it's going to be unpleasant for you. But I just want to be clear: this is not a plot that has been designed by the host of today's radio program in order to diminish the Democratic Party. our host today on the radio program is not the man behind getting these extreme left-wing Democratic socialists in a position to influence the image of the Democratic Party writ large. They're doing it to themselves. It's not requiring our host to mastermind this as he has done in so many of these schemes in the past.
Thank you for exonerating me. But you must be amazed as a political operative, and I know you do stuff with David Axelrod. And you guys debate things from both sides of the party. You like each other, but you have different perspectives. This is something that he can't back, right? He's got to be James Carville. These Democrats got to be horrified by this. This doesn't play nationally.
I'm not going to presume to speak on behalf of either James or David, but any sensible Democrat, I am confident, is sitting there saying, what are we doing to ourselves by putting up lunatics who are going to not only to force independence out of our column, but cause a lot of sensible Democrats to say, what is our party going about doing? And the image is going to be hard to erase once the stain is on the Democratic label that they are nominating people like these two gentlemen in Minneapolis and New York. It's going to be hard to wipe that away. There's going to have to be a battle, a conflict inside the Democratic Party where the Democrats win. It's interesting, not to dwell too much on Minneapolis, but in political history, the Minnesota Democrats were an anti-Semitic party in the late 1940s and early 50s, and a young, crusading liberal Democrat came along and took on the issue of anti-Semitism. His name was Hubert Humphrey, and he created the modern Democratic Farm Labor Party in that state and made it a viable coalition of rural conservative Democrats, moderates, and liberals like himself. But he did so by getting involved in a fight, and the fight was, would the Democratic Party in Minnesota continue to be anti-Semitic? Wow, great history. Karl Rove, thanks so much, and thanks for exonerating me. I appreciate it. You gave me $20 to say it. We all know you're really behind the whole plot, so that's you. I mean, I did that because you gave me $20, but really, we all know you did it. You did it.
I was just speaking to a senior White House official who tells me that they are feeling really good because they are, number one, moving the ball forward, and number two, they feel that they are proving that the American markets matter more than anything else, and not just proving that to the world, but proving that to domestic partners as well, i.e. Congress. They're really showing that the way that the president has chosen to negotiate this, how he's dealing with these foreign leaders, is working and pushing things ahead.
So there you go. That was Dasha Burns of Politico giving some analysis on how the Trump team is feeling at this hour. They're not without problems, hurdles. I get it. But they feel pretty good about the deals, especially considering where it was in the spring. Senator Roger Marshall joins us now of Kansas. Senator, would you back that up from your sources and your relationship with the president? Are they feeling pretty good about where this is at right now?
Oh, Brian, we're ecstatic, absolutely ecstatic. And every time I see the president, I'll tell him we're not tired of winning. But, who's excited about these trade deals are my Kansas farmers and the aerospace industry. What Kansas exports are agriculture products and airplanes and jets. So just ecstatic about these deals. The president removing these non-trade barriers, all these countries, in addition to giving us basically a zero types of penalties going into their country's tariffs, but they're also opening their markets and they're moving investment into America. Just this past week, I had several of the large pharma companies who make their drugs overseas very popular, very successful. They're moving that manufacturing here, so we're all excited about them.
So the $300 billion, you're on the budget committee. So the $300 billion they expect to make at the end of the year, according to the Treasury Secretary, well, how does that money factor into the budget? Like, can you actually take the $300 billion off the deficit? How does it work?
I don't think we can. I think that we could. We're going to go through this appropriation process right now, which, by the way, Chuck Schumer is trying to sabotage. We can just make those buckets smaller in amount so we spend less. And we need to work towards a balanced budget. That would be the first step. If there's a way we could just use that to pay down the debt, I think that we would have to do a specific law to do that.
But does it figure in the budget when it comes to revenue as opposed to expenses?
I think in my mind,
is our country earning this money? Does that go to the Treasury? In other words,
yeah. So it will go to the U.S. Treasury, and then Congress will decide where it's going to be spent. But when you're spending $2 trillion more than you're taking in, this is a drop in the bucket, and we need to work towards a balanced budget, and that'll help us get there. That's going to go on the income ledger, along with tax revenue.
So the interest rate with the Fed's going to meet today, and they're going to meet again in September. With the growth, with the GDP at 3% and inflation under 3%, don't you feel as though a rate cut, not that you want, do you think a rate cut could be coming?
I sure hope so. Jerome Too Late Powell, he is too late, kind of like Ed Too Tall Jones. This is Jerome Too Late Powell. He should have cut it a quarter point some time ago, a quarter point now, half point in the future. He's a lame duck, and I don't know what he's going to do. If he doesn't drop something today, I just have to think it's politically or emotionally motivated.
So when you look at the other area of your responsibility, and that's HHS, Health and Human Services, when you have the FDA, we know that dyes are rapidly coming out of our foods. We know that they're cracking down on some of the convenience stores and some of the crazy stuff they've been selling. Are you enthused about the MAHA movement 6 months in?
Yeah, we're making great progress, making incredible progress. We have a group of bills that'll help support that movement as well, a group of bills that's going to make our soil healthier, help our farmers grow more with less pesticides, with less fertilizers, trying to get more access to primary. So, yes, I am. My thing I'm worried about right now, which is coming to my attention, Brian, is China continues to make a lot of knockoffs. So, for instance, China's making a knockoff of a GLP-1 that they're sending to the U.S. that's compounded into a pharmacy. 14 people have died from that. So one of my big emphasis here is moving all that supply chain back to the United States. It's easier said than done.
When you talk about these China deals, I want you to hear what Scott Besson said about so far how it's going 2 days in. Cut 2.
We had a very fulsome 2 days with the Chinese delegation led by Vice Premier Ho Li-feng. It was our third meeting. I'm happy to say that London built on Geneva, Stockholm built on London and Geneva. I think we had great momentum going into the meeting.
So he went on to say that he thinks the deals that were cut prior to the China meeting are setting the table here. They're dead serious. What could you tell us about this meeting and what has to be in it? Number one, they're still not addressing fentanyl and the dual-use equipment they're sending to Russia.
Yeah. So a lot to unpack there. So big picture is that with China, we have a $270 billion trade deficit to address. I think that people miss the calculated way that the Trump administration is doing this. Basically, they boxed in China. Think about it. They've done the EU. They've done Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, Japan, Australia. So by having bilateral trade agreements with them, it's putting a lot of pressure on China. One other thing China does to cheat is they'll send a bunch of T-shirts that they made or tennis shoes, and they'll send them to Vietnam, and then Vietnam is getting them in at their lower tariff rate. So the president is doubling up on that type of transaction to make sure that those are tariffed appropriately. So we absolutely are getting there. To your point, I'm much more concerned about fentanyl poisoning. There's intellectual property theft, the counterfeits they make, all those things. But I have faith in Scott Besson. This guy is one of the sharpest people I've ever met. I wish I could give him money to invest for me, but we can't do that. But he really is. He is driving that show. USTR Jameson Greer, I think, is another brilliant person trained under Bob Lighthizer. So I think that they will get the best deal we can. And just like this deal with the EU is an incredible deal. I expect a good deal out of them. I think the challenge is making it long-term, Brian. What can Congress do to make these long-term deals? Because if Trump isn't president, will the next president have the kahunas to slap these tariffs on? Because China will cheat in the future.
But the fact that the president's going to be here for 3.5 years instead of people doubting that he would even get reelected, I think China knows the deal they cut, he's going to reinforce or it's all going to fall apart. From what you know, are they in a situation that they have to make a deal, that their current status quo is not good for them?
Yeah, Brian, I think the bigger picture, their economy is in horrible shape. absolutely horrible shape. The currency manipulation, I think, comes back and bites them right now. There are a number of people that are being born versus the number of people that need to retire there. That's like 5 times worse than the situation that we are in right now. And maybe most importantly is, what does China make that we can't live without? Well, you're going to say magnets and some of these rare earth minerals that we need to address, but they cannot feed their country. So I think that we have a lot of aces right now. They got some queens and jacks. So I think that we are in a position of power, and we should take nothing less than a great deal for America.
What are you doing before you guys leave? I mean, you're trying to get over 100 confirmations done. People like Michael Waltz already got through the committee. The ambassador to the United Nations, are guys that he's well known. What is being done besides one at a time? You need dozens passed.
Right, exactly. And I think this is the big political picture here, and you get this. But what's driving the Democrat Party right now is their far left. Chuck Schumer is scared to death of AOC and that far left. So they're demanding he's got to do something. He's got to do something. So he's doing everything in his power to gum up the process, whether it's nominations or appropriations bill as well. He's in a panicked mode right now, and he's lashing out, slowing up what is traditionally done. People that would pass with unanimous consent and take 0 floor time, we're having to vote on them 3 times and spend 2 hours or more on each one of them. So if they're going to keep doing that, then we just need to stay here in August till we get more of these people confirmed.
I don't think he's going to. I think Senator Thune was saying to us last week that he thinks you guys are more effective going home explaining the big, beautiful bill, which is now law. So I'm not sure how long he plans on keeping you guys there. And I'm sure you guys have earned a break where you go home. A lot of people are going to be traveling and going. So I don't know how you guys are going to do this. What do they want? What do they want? Like when they say, if you want this, Democrats.
So the Democrats secretly want to all go home, right? That is their number one priority. These people are professional politicians. They're used to having all summer off. And by the way, when I go back, I'm going to work harder back in Kansas than I do here. So, and then at the same time, though, that their leader is scared to death. I can't believe he's still their leader, that he hasn't been fired yet. But he's scared to death to be in primary, his legacy. So it's all about his political legacy right now, keeping that together. But I just have to emphasize, Brian, yes, I want to go home, but I've done 4 telephone town halls up here with people back in Kansas in the last 2 weeks, over 5,000 people on each one of those calls. You can go home on weekends. We've had significant strong events as well. We could stay for easily 2 weeks and still go back and accomplish that mission of targeting the great things about the big, beautiful bill, whether it's the biggest tax cut in American history or no tax on tips, all those types of things. So I think we can walk and chew gum, but what we could do most to help the people of America is get President Trump's nominations confirmed so they can execute his agenda, if that makes sense.
Well, sometimes Democrats, and you guys did it too when you were the minority, said, do this and I'll give you judges. Do this and I'll give you your ambassadors. Have they come up to leadership and said, Democrats, we're proposing this, or no?
Yeah, I think those are conversations that are happening at the highest of levels. And no, I'm not privy to them, but I think that they have to know that we are very willing to stay here. And by the way, we have a president that he however strong and powerful you think he is, it's even more so back home with our base. If we go back in August and the president is saying they need to be up here, the first question I get in every small town is, why the hell are you not in Washington, D.C. doing your job? The president wants you there. So they need to think about that as well.
So, Senator, I want to bring you to Cory Booker fighting with his own party over this police funding bill, cut 42.
Why would we do something today that's playing into the president's politics and is going to hurt the officers in states like mine?
This is an attempt to kill all of these bills. I don't know why, because at the end of the day, all of these bills are about bipartisan support.
This, to me, is the problem with Democrats in America right now, is we're willing to be complicit to Donald Trump.
All of these bills came out of the committee unanimously, and I think they deserve that support on the floor.
This is a call, folks. The Democratic Party needs a wake-up call.
It's just insane. They're arguing with themselves. Actually, Klobuchar said this is bipartisan. You weren't, but it turns out he wasn't even showing up at the committee meetings. And Senator Masto, Democrat from Nevada. Can you shed some light on this for our listeners?
Yeah, I think, first of all, the one thing I did learn politically up here is when your opponent is forming a circular firing squad is don't hop in the middle of them. So I think we need to give them all the rope we can on this. This kind of takes us back to what I was talking about earlier. The far left of the Democrat Party is the tail wagging the dog. Here's Cory Booker running for president, right? He's trying to reach that primary base, saying he's the most radical progressive person up here. That's what he's doing right there. And again, this is a party that won't stop digging. They're in this hole. They have no respect for law and order. He just keeps digging and digging. These bills that she's proposing, bipartisan, stronger law and order, support the police. He's out there still shouting like this mayor candidate from New York that we want to defund the police. So I think this is all political. They're more interested in running for president, Cory Booker is, than and here you have Amy Klobuchar, who's one of the most moderate Democrats, level-headed people up here, and to be honest, has just been a joy to get to know and get to work with. We were in bipartisan prayer breakfast together. It's something you'll never see, but she gave just an incredible lesson to us today about life in our bipartisan prayer breakfast.
All right.
So I hope that shed some light.
He was a doctor in his former life, and now he's a senator in this life. Senator Roger Marshall, thanks so much.
Thank you, Brian. Have a great day, and let's keep making America great again.